Do you wish you had some kind of cheat guide before you became an adult? Things that school or maybe your parents don't teach you? Then check out the book called Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car. Just search Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car on Amazon. You can find it there. And it's about the basic things that we take for granted, like the common skill of checking apartment complexes at night before you sign your lease, or doing a background check on your roommate before you move in together, or not co-signing for something. The book is designed to help those parents or guardians help their young ones transition from their home successfully. Whether that is getting a roommate, how to spot a really crappy landlord, or how not to buy an awful car, these are some of the things that they've learned throughout their own personal experiences. So check out Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car on Amazon, and give your kids the cheat codes to things that we wish we had. Check out Adulting 101, Things I Wish I Knew, My First Apartment on Amazon today.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Is going to WrestleMania. Claymore. Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my honor. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, well, it is Sunday, September 11th, 2022. We've got so much to talk about tonight with this week in wrestling with Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. That'll be our main focus, is usually SmackDown, but there's a lot still to talk about with Raw. What's coming up? We're full, we've now switched gears, rather, into Extreme Rules season, which is going to take place October 8th, 2022. I believe it's Philadelphia. And we've already got some matches on the card, some rumored matches, some I think fairly safe matches to say are going to happen. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about, as I said, Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. But first, before we even acknowledge anything else, it is September 11th. And this is not a downer of a podcast, but it's been 21 years, which is just crazy. We all remember where we were. For me, I was in school. I was a junior in high school. Everybody, looking at the TVs, class, continued throughout the day, but no one really paid attention, and the teachers couldn't teach. And, everyone's got their own personal story. That's my very abbreviated one. I remember I went to work, and I worked at a grocery store, and as a bagger, actually, bagging groceries. And I'd only been working there about a year. And I remember people coming in and crying, and, it was pretty emotional. I mean, I was only, 16 years old when that happened, so your mind's not fully developed to completely understand the magnitude of the event. And now being 37, it's definitely a different perspective. But that's my story. Everyone's got their own of where they were and who they told and who they talked to and what they said. It's just one of those things. In 21 years, it's crazy. It's been 21 years. Just nuts. So, and it actually felt like for a brief moment during that time that everyone could unite around something, right? Boy, how times change and how quickly they change. But all right. So let's dive into the more fun part of the show. And I actually want to give a shout out to our newest patron, Richard Marston. I hope I said that right. I hope that you enjoy your benefits over there, Richard, and that if you need anything, let me know. You can join Richard in getting an ad-free experience by patreon.com/WWE podcast. But thank you, Richard, for joining us. And also, if anyone's interested in the AEW review, that is still open. We've had some takers and people trying to fit it into their schedules, and I know it's not easy to do. But if you are interested in covering AEW on a weekly basis and just doing like a 30-minute show every week, then reach out to me. You can either do it at mailbag@wwepodcast.com or on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can email me at realwpodcast@gmail.com. All of those are ways to get in touch with me if you're interested. We're still trying to fill that AEW position. So if you're interested, shoot me an email or a DM or slide in my DMs, whatever you want to do. And lastly, I put out a poll to patrons earlier this week, and I asked, how can we improve the show? How can, help me help you? And there were some options there. And many of you have had several things of anything ranging from you're too negative, stop repeating yourself, to more audio to more video to post shows for live events, premium live events, to have like a live show. And I think these are all good suggestions. And one of the biggest requests, common requests and patterns of responses I got was to bring back After Dark. And it never went away. I just barely have time to do the regular shows, much less add more shows. But to be fair, I will be resuming After Dark. I don't know how regularly they will drop, but if you're not familiar with After Dark, it is basically a show that is not PG. It is a not family-friendly version of the show. Sometimes it's a little wrestling. A lot of times it's much more adult topics, if you get my drift. Some cussing, some raunchiness, and not just to be raunchy, just being frank. And so that's something that you get only with the Patreon subscription. So I'm not trying to give another infomercial, but I hear you loud and clear. I'll try to bring After Dark back, and maybe sooner than you think. So, okay, let's dive into this week in WWE, because, as I said, there's a lot to unpack, as they say. Isn't that like the cool way to say there's a lot to talk about now? Let's start with Braun Strowman. And let me preface this by saying I am supportive of Braun Strowman being brought back. Adam Scherr, I'm very supportive of it. I think he was let go unfairly. I was never a huge fan of his character. Still am not. But I think there is value in a man that size with that look. And they didn't get all they could out of him, I don't think. And Triple H clearly felt the same way, or he wouldn't have brought him back. And to his credit, to Adam Scherr's credit, Braun Strowman, he has put himself through the ringer of losing body fat. I think shaving the head was a great idea. I didn't like the ponytail thing. He seems like he's a more polished wrestler. And that all said, this was an opportunity for WWE to hit the reset button and give him a new kind of fresh coat of paint and give him a new catchphrase or some new moves or some new, and instead it's just the old Braun Strowman. The Braun Strowman that we knew is still the same Braun Strowman that came back. And for some of you, that's great. And I'm happy for you. For me, I was hoping for some kind of evolution. I think, Braun Strowman's favorite word is roar. If you think I'm exaggerating, just go watch SmackDown. I mean, that was essentially everything that Braun Strowman said in that video package WWE put together, is him just roaring. And it's not, I don't know. It's not my flavor of a wrestler. I understand the value in him. Again, I have nothing but respect for the guy. It's just not my flavor. But I was hoping for some kind of just upgrade. And instead, it's just the same Braun Strowman doing the same maneuvers. And I think he's got a little bit of different music. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. I was hoping for a little bit more. And instead they're still referring to him as the Strowman Express too. The train analogy, again, just not my favorite. If it is yours, then wonderful. I'm not discouraging you from trying to like him, but the train references are old, tired, and it feels like so 2000 and late. Not my thing, but okay. So Braun Strowman, the last really week, has been on a mission to just destroy tag teams. And this past week on SmackDown, 2 nights ago, as I record this, he ended up destroying the Alpha Academy again. And having Otis get a few shots in him was good. It wasn't a complete squash, but ultimately it ended in just Braun Strowman standing tall, doing his big roar, and going off into the sunset as Alpha Academy is left laying. And again, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I feel very neutral about this because I really like Alpha Academy. I think there's more to them than just a comedy heel act that is going to just end up getting their ass kicked. I think they could be taken more seriously if they were just put a little bit of a fuel behind them. But this whole segment has been built around Braun Strowman and Braun Strowman's return and just showing how dominant that he can be. I don't know. I have mixed feelings again because I understand why they're making Braun Strowman look so dominant. You want him to, especially if you're going to get him eventually ready for Roman Reigns at some point. We'll see. I don't know. Trust me, I don't want Braun Strowman champion. But I think that when you have a guy that is a singles competitor coming in and laying waste to 4 tag teams at once and then doing it again to another tag team on SmackDown, I think it kind of devalues the work that you've or the progress you've made in the men's tag team division. For a tag team division that always needs help, it seems just both men's and women's both need help, like all the time. You have one guy come in and just decimate the entire landscape of the tag team division. I know it's one night from Monday night, but I don't think it's something that you want to do with any kind of regularity. I think it's something that you want to just do once to establish Braun Strowman as a monster. It's like, oh, okay, the monster among men, got it. He's still the choo-choo train, got it. Okay, so they made that they sent that message to us. Message received, got it. I just don't want them to have him lay waste to the tag team division, tag teams on a regular basis. It doesn't do anyone any favors outside of Braun Strowman. And actually, I think you'll eventually turn him heel if you keep doing that. So anyway, my point is, I don't know what they're getting ready, Braun Strowman ready for. I would imagine Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns is not going anywhere. Or rather, he's not going to show up at Extreme Rules from what I understand. Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns, if it's going to happen, is probably down the line, maybe later in the year. You'd imagine that Braun Strowman, given that Roman Reigns beat Braun Strowman and The Fiend, you would imagine when he first won the Universal Championship in August of 2020, that there's some story there, and I hope that they eventually go back to it, because Braun Strowman could bring up something and say, hey, Roman, remember me, right? So there's something there that they could pull from, and I just think if Braun Strowman happens, it's probably later, because I believe if Roman takes Extreme Rules off, and I believe he will because it's not a big enough pay-per-view for him, then you're going to have Braun Strowman, or rather Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns at Survivor Series in November. And then if there's no, assuming that everyone's on the same roster, because who knows what's happening with the draft, you have Braun Strowman maybe in December, or rather January at the Royal Rumble. Maybe, because December I don't think has a premium live event, do they? I believe they stopped putting premium live events in December, which is a really smart move. December is just a hectic month with Christmas and everything else. And so anyway, I'm 4 steps ahead. What Braun Strowman did this past week, I understand. I just don't want any kind of patterns with this at all. Okay, so what else happened? We got Ronda Rousey getting earning a number one contendership in a fatal 5-way elimination match on SmackDown, and a lot of tap outs here. Did everyone tap out? Was that the entire? I think it was. I think that was the entire method in which people were eliminated. Everybody just seemed to tap out. But that said, Ronda did win, and won in fairly short order. It wasn't a squash, but Ronda and Sonya Deville were the last 2 contenders. And Sonya ends up tapping to the ankle lock almost begrudgingly. It almost seems like she just didn't want to do the job. And, it's my own interpretation. Now, Sonya may have had no problem, but it almost looked like she felt that, she didn't want to do the job and kind of haphazardly did a tap, a very slow tap. It wasn't a very aggressive, I'm in pain tap. Regardless, Ronda Rousey wins. And from there, Liv Morgan, who's up in one of the box seats, looks on, and they stare at each other, and we get a Ronda Rousey versus Liv Morgan for the, as Ronda would probably refer to it, the SmackDown Championship. The SmackDown Women's Championship, it's going to take place at Extreme Rules on October 8th. And I have to say, looking ahead a little bit, this does seem to me like Ronda Rousey could take it back. And why do I think that's going to happen? I keep bringing this to Becky Lynch because I think they're going to get to Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, and it should be at WrestleMania. So I think you could have Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch in a champion versus champion match at WrestleMania, and you could have a winner take all again. Or you could have Ronda and Becky cross paths at the Rumble. One of them costs the other the championship before then, so that they're already building it. One of them accidentally costs the other. Maybe they're drafted to the same brand. I think that's a very strong possibility. If they're drafted to the same brand, that's all you need to know about the WrestleMania main event for the women. My point is there's a multiple array of options for WWE to go down to get to Ronda Becky. And I don't want a third wheel, a fourth wheel, fifth wheel. I don't want a champion. Even if a championship's not involved, I honestly don't know if I need a championship with that one. So Ronda Becky, WrestleMania 39, I'm calling it now. It needs to happen. So, all right. See, I'm going out like 6 months. But let's continue on. We also, on SmackDown, got Imperium. Imperium that consists of Giovanni Vinci. That's a tough word, or a tough two names. Giovanni Vinci. I almost want to say Da Vinci, but Ludwig Kaiser and, of course, Gunther defeating the Brawling Brutes of Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland. This came at the expense of Kaiser planting Holland with a double team move. I forget what their finishing maneuver is, but Vinci and Kaiser planted Holland with that move, and Holland took the fall for the team. It's interesting that Gunther didn't get the victory here, like for his team. And I have no problem with that. It's just interesting that for everything that they did for Gunther and Sheamus, that neither were involved in the actual decision. I'm not complaining. It's just noteworthy, I guess. So this is just one of those things that with these two groups, it feels so important, and something that we didn't give a damn about just like 4 weeks ago is just, it's amazing. And Sheamus and Gunther going face to face, still just, man, I tried to figure out an analogy of these two together and why they have such good chemistry, or why the fans love this so much and all that. It's almost as if like they're looking in a mirror with each other. Now, of course, not from a physical perspective of, Sheamus has red hair and Gunther. Yeah. No. From a in-ring perspective, how they approach the ring, their styles in the ring, they're looking in a mirror. And it's fascinating to watch these two work. And I do believe that at Extreme Rules, you'll see some kind of rematch in some form or fashion between these two. I don't think it'll be as good. It can't be as good. It's nearly impossible to be as good as their first feud. To put magic together like that again is impossible. I mean, you want a few examples? How about the Usos and the Street Profits from Money in the Bank to SummerSlam? How about Shawn Michaels and Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, and then repeated in 26? You tell me which one was better, right? I mean, those are just some off the top of my head. It's just nearly impossible to recreate magic like that. It's like a once in a year, sometimes once every couple of years type of magic. So I have my hopes tapered a bit, and you should too. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but when you have a standard of this match is going to be 5 stars or 5+ stars, you've already defeated yourself. Those are rare. I mean, exceptionally rare. And then to have them do back to back is unheard of almost. So, but Imperium back together. I love it. I love Imperium together. If you didn't follow them in NXT UK, well, you should maybe go back and take a look at their work. When Gunther was Walter, it's going to make you excited for what they have in store. And it also gives you confidence that when stars come from NXT or groups come from NXT up to the main roster, the translation isn't going to be as messy. Where Vince sometimes didn't seem to get it or feel like anybody had anything, and Triple H created something great in NXT, and Vince feels like he had to manipulate it or twist it in some way to make it, quote, fit on the main roster. Triple H doesn't have to do that. He's going from one product that he babied and created from nothing to another product that he adopted from Vince, and he can now creatively control. And it shouldn't be that big of a translation. There's not much to change. So I think Imperium is going to be a force to be reckoned with. The Brawling Brutes and Imperium will probably have several more weeks or more of this program continuing, because tell me the last time you cared about the Brawling Brutes at all. Up until Imperium and Gunther, right? I've got nothing but praise for this. Gunther and Sheamus. Can we start a Fight Forever chant? Okay. Imagine a 60-minute Iron Man match with these two. Oof. Good grief. So Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah take out Toxic Attraction. I think Michael Cole finally figured out how to say those two words. Gigi Dolan and JC Jane were the female competitors in Toxic Attraction after Rodriguez took down Jane with the Tejana Bomb. And boy, are they really just stacking on, no pun intended, Raquel Rodriguez. They are really just establishing her in your mind, maybe not so subtly, as a player. She is a player. She is here to, she's a future women's champion. And I would say in 2023, she will capture that championship. So, I mean, she's a force of nature, I have to say. On the mic, so far it hasn't been awesome, but that can be worked on. In the ring, look, she's got it. And, you know, Aaliyah, I think, unfortunately, is just kind of along for the ride. All right, let's take a quick break for the sponsor of today's episode. We'll be right back after this. Do you wish you had some kind of cheat guide before you became an adult? Things that school or maybe your parents don't teach you? Then check out the book called Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car. Just search Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car on Amazon. You can find it there. And it's about the basic things that we take for granted, like the common skill of checking apartment complexes at night before you sign your lease, or doing a background check on your roommate before you move in together, or not co-signing for something. The book is designed to help those parents or guardians help their young ones transition from their home successfully. Whether that is getting a roommate, how to spot a really crappy landlord, or how not to buy an awful car, these are some of the things that they've learned throughout their own personal experiences. So check out Adulting 101, My First Apartment and Car on Amazon, and give your kids the cheat codes to things that we wish we had. Check out Adulting 101, Things I Wish I Knew, My First Apartment on Amazon today.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you for staying with us. And let's get into a little bit more SmackDown here. We've got Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, though, beyond the match she had with the Fatal 5-Way elimination, she had an interesting interaction with Shayna Baszler backstage. They embraced. Things seemed friendly. But Ronda said something to the effect of, you know, that she wants Shayna to get back to the Shayna that breaks people's arms or breaks bones. And that's interesting. I think what you'll see eventually is Rousey truly turning heel and eventually joining Shayna Baszler. I know they'll have a match, but I think eventually once we get to early next year and you see Becky Lynch try to take them on as a babyface, we'll see Shayna Baszler as kind of the henchman for Rousey. That's my guess. But in the meantime, we should see at some point a Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler match with Shayna Baszler playing the heel, Ronda Rousey will be the babyface. So when is that coming? I don't know. I think that once you have Ronda Rousey beat Liv Morgan, and I think she will beat Liv Morgan this coming pay-per-view, Shayna will say, well, as friends, like, why aren't you giving me an opportunity? Give me an opportunity. And maybe Shayna Baszler, out of frustration and maybe the feeling of betrayal, that she attacks Rousey, and then Rousey and Baszler go for a SmackDown championship match at Survivor Series. That's my thought. Again, a lot of ifs, a lot of moving parts, but if you don't get to a Rousey-Shayna Baszler matchup, I mean, I don't know how you don't. Unless they're saving that for WrestleMania, but I hope it's Becky and Ronda. So, okay. The Street Profits and Hit Row end up defeating the Los Lotharios and Maximum Male Models. It was a massive tag team match after Hit Row struck Mansoor with the heavy hitter. So, not much to really write home about here. This was just a kind of, I hate to say filler tag team matchup. I think the most interesting part of this, the Maximum Male Models, seeing them out there, I don't hate it. I still don't hate it. It's still a guilty pleasure of mine. And Maxine is distractingly attractive, I have to say. She's just, I mean, I guess that's the point. But this tag team matchup was fine. You know, having Hit Row get the victory was the right choice. It's not the predictable or unpredictable choice, but it's the right one. Maximum Male Models are right now kind of the punchline, the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, of the tag team division with Mansois. And Massey, of course. Can't forget about Massey. I don't want to leave him out. I already discussed the Braun Strowman beating up the Alpha Academy. The thing I didn't mention about it is that Braun Strowman hit a jackknife powerbomb, the best he could, on Otis. That's impressive. I mean, no doubt about it. He didn't get him all the way up. It wasn't like a last ride from The Undertaker, but it was as strong as a human being on the roster could be to perform a move like that on Otis as good as it looked. That was impressive on both ends. Okay. Then we get the main event, which I didn't really talk about much yet. We got Solo Sikoa taking on Drew McIntyre. Now, Drew McIntyre beat Solo Sikoa via disqualification because, well, Karrion Kross ended up blindsiding McIntyre after McIntyre hit the Claymore on Solo Sikoa. Immediately after that, Karrion Kross took out McIntyre. And that, I actually didn't see that coming. It makes sense that McIntyre didn't beat a guy that just debuted, especially in the bloodline. You want the bloodline to look as strong as possible. Of course, Roman Reigns wasn't there this week. But this tells you also that they're changing directions right now with Drew. That he still wants revenge on the bloodline. He did hit the Claymore on Solo. He didn't get the victory. But now he's got Karrion Kross attacking him from behind. And that tells me that since that's the last thing that happened on SmackDown with Drew, that Drew is going to be in a program now with him. They're going to probably have a match, him and Karrion Kross, at Extreme Rules. Maybe beyond. But at least through Extreme Rules until Drew gets himself back on track and refocused on the Undisputed Championship. But Solo Sikoa, what do I think of it? I think I'd be more excited if it wasn't 2 years into the reign and that they're just adding things now to have Roman continue to be champion for this mythical, impossible to pay off conclusion or climax to the Roman Reigns championship story. And I think Solo Sikoa seems like a decent performer. I didn't really watch him in NXT. I think that he's going to be a nice addition to the bloodline. The bloodline gets not only did everyone retain tag team championships and the Universal, which are undisputed, but they grew in size and got stronger. It's really unbelievable. And it also makes you want to see The Rock even more because they keep bringing up family, bloodline. How is The Rock not here yet? How? You can set it up 5 months, 6 months in advance. Easy. They did John Cena and then Rock a year in advance. So I'm just sour until it happens. But this matchup was fine. Nothing again to write home about. Just a fundamentally sound matchup. But the biggest thing here was having Karrion Kross lock in a chokehold on McIntyre. We had Scarlett standing there, or rather kind of staring at McIntyre and whispering who knows what. But it was okay. It was an okay ending. It just kind of gave you a message of transition for Drew. That was the ultimate message, is Drew is transitioning away from the bloodline and to Karrion Kross, as the bloodline has new contenders likely set up. So that was Monday Night Raw on SmackDown. Monday Night Raw really had a theme of Dominic Mysterio and his turn, even though we didn't get to hear from him at all. We got no words from him at all, which may be for the best, given that he doesn't seem to be exactly a wordsmith. But it's still a nice look for him, and I'm not complaining at all. Dominic has been long overdue for a heel turn, like many months. And having him line at the Judgment Day, and also having Ray give the proclamation that he will never ever put hands on his son, sets up for what is Dominic going to have to do for Ray to break his promise. It's going to have to be heinous. It's going to be violent. It's going to have to be brutal. It's going to have to be like Ray's hand is being forced to face his own son. And I think it's going to take many months to get there, which ultimately will be WrestleMania. But I told you just before, those that didn't hear me maybe before, if you haven't seen the Undertaker-Kane storyline back in 1998 that led to the WrestleMania 14 matchup between the two, that's the storyline here that I think they're adopting. And I love it. I have no problems with it. But if you haven't seen the Undertaker-Kane storyline, or you want a brief on it, I'm sure YouTube has it. In late '98 was it late '97? It was late '97 when he first debuted at Bad Blood, when Kane debuted, and then it led all the way from October to March at WrestleMania 14. So that's what I think they're adopting, and I think it's an excellent storyline. I think it's applicable here. There's a lot of content that they can pull from. There's a lot of old footage of Dominic and Rey when Eddie Guerrero was there in the ladder match and the Poppy stuff. There's just a plethora of stuff. It just now comes down to Dominic being able to execute. And so far, his look is great. I think he looks like he belongs. I think that what will really put it over the top is when he can actually speak in a way that's at least solid, right? Like, I'm not looking for an A+ give me chills promo, but just be fundamentally sound on the microphone. Just be able to hit bullet points and tell me what I need to hear and help the story progress and get me angry at you. Very easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. The concept is simple, but execution isn't always easy. So that's my suggestion there. But overall, I'm not complaining about the Dominic heel turn. I think that is an excellent thing to have happen. It's about damn time. And having this happen with Rey also doing the proclamation he will never put his hands on his son sets up for, okay, yeah, you're eventually going to put your hands on his son. How are we going to get there? And I think it's going to take many months and a lot of tears, and maybe Rey puts his entire family in jeopardy. And Dominic is trying to, or Dominic puts his entire family in jeopardy, and he's forcing Rey to sign a contract that he doesn't want to sign to face him at maybe WrestleMania or whatever. And he says, otherwise I'll break your wife's neck. I'll break my mom's neck, like something sick. And Rey's hand is literally forced to do it. That's what I think could happen. Or the more of the Undertaker Kane story, where we have just Dominic do heinous thing after heinous thing after heinous thing, and you see Rey struggling not to want to strike his son, and he gets eaten away little by little, where eventually Dominic does something so heinous where he shows up at the house and like lights the house on fire or something, or I don't know, something insane. And Rey then says, you've pushed me over the edge. My son is dead to me. I don't know who you are. And eventually he faces Dominic at a major pay-per-view. That's what I think is going to happen. There's just no two ways about it. All right, so let's see what else happened here. Kevin Owens took out Austin Theory after hitting him with a stunner. Theory, by the way, is getting beat very quickly lately. It's weird. He's Mr. Money in the Bank. He had a heck of a match with Pat McAfee at WrestleMania. He's been excellent on the mic, and yet he's getting beat clean left and right. It's interesting. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. But Kevin Owens, on the other hand, is on the rise. Kevin Owens is a guy that I am just super, super happy for, and I'm sure he is as well, that Triple H is the one in charge and not Vince anymore. Because it seems as if he can just be himself. He's back to the prize fighter. He's back to cutting more passion promos, like the one with Drew McIntyre from like 3 weeks ago, and Austin Theory. I mean, he keeps calling out Roman Reigns as well, talking to Sami Zayn last week, and he's just a wild card on the show. You never know where he's going to end up, and I don't know what eventually he's going to consistently get to. I would imagine what he's eventually going to consistently get to is a tag team with Sami Zayn as Sami Zayn turns on the bloodline. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But, I could be wrong. I mean, I think eventually Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens could lock horns. So, but yeah. So Kevin Owens ends up taking out Austin Theory. We also got Bianca Belair challenging Bayley, but Bayley refusing for now. Johnny Gargano, after being interrupted by Theory during a backstage interview, he announced he would return during this week, so tomorrow night or tonight as you're listening to this on Raw. Damian Priest took out Rey Mysterio via pinfall after hitting him with South of Heaven. And then Dominic as well as Rhea distracted his father to give Priest the opening And Ripley announced Dominic versus Edge for next week. So that's going to be fun. Dominic versus Edge. And what else? Seth Rollins, again, rejected Matt Riddle's, Matt Riddle's name suddenly expanded by one. Matt Riddle demanded a rematch, and Rollins said nope. And that also is a match that for now is not happening. It was a bit of we're going to get Bianca Bailey at Extreme Rules. We'll get Rollins and Riddle at Extreme Rules. To me, Extreme Rules kind of ties up the summer. To me, it just puts a bow on summer. And once we get to Survivor Series, it's a whole different ball game to me. I think once you get to Survivor Series, you've made it through the summer. You're now into fall, middle of fall, and you're starting to look ahead to already WrestleMania. You know, and really SummerSlam you could do that, but even more so, Survivor Series is going to be a more important pay-per-view because they don't do one in December anymore, at least as I look now currently. At least, what's today? September 11th, 2022. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Okay, does that cover everything this week in WWE? I don't know, I feel like this is too short of a show. Maybe this is way too short of a show for a week in review, but I guess that's what the universe is telling me. So that means that I will be back tomorrow with Anthony DeMarco to cover the state of WWE. There's a ton to go over there. Tuesday is Raw Review. Wednesday's Mailbag-ish, sometimes Thursday. And then, that's the regularly scheduled programming. If you guys want to be a part of the AEW coverage and you want to just talk about wrestling, AEW, for 30 minutes every week and want to voice your opinion on the platform, again, you can email me at mailbag at wwepodcast.com. And all you need is, first of all, a decent quality microphone and also a passion for pro wrestling. Just love AEW and you will be just fine. So, all right. I think that does it for me tonight, guys. I appreciate all the support. Continue to support us on Apple Podcasts. 5-star ratings really help. Or on Patreon for $1 a month. All of our hundreds of ad-free shows right there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I do appreciate it. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.